lot of the group here isn't innovation and growth, it's the future of the company, they're external, like you're naturally external, like focused, you're curious. What were the things that you reflect back on your career, the things that you did, whether it's disciplines or the things that allowed you to stay externally connected and to be able to start to see and anticipate where things were going? Because it's so easy to get just back to the day-to-day grind, you're not putting yourself out there, but just
I did that too. I'm actually these days, I've left you a year ago, so I'm on a bit of an anti-optimization kick these days because if we had met in early 2017, if I had a chance to talk to any of you individually, how are you doing, what are you up to? But then I'd say, like, what are your productivity tips? How are you getting more out of your day? And I realized how addictive that is, yet I felt like my path in the company I was in was twofold. One was to be this kind of outsider inside. And I think most of you here, hopefully you identify with this kind of role, the one that's always finding those trends and seeing the change early. So you have enough of that outside perspective, but you have to translate it back inside. So you have to speak the language they speak. It has to, like, why do I care about blockchain? Why do I care? I make locomotives. Why do I care? So you have to have that translator role. But then I had to put myself out there, and back to the curiosity, I mean, kind of make room for discovery became a bit of my mantra. I've got to get out there. In the early days, I think my mistake was, or what I had to learn was, it wasn't enough that I was just out there. I mean, maybe some of you can recognize this, but you go out and you're like, before you know it, you're the one chasing the shiny new thing. And you're always like, I saw this new thing, and you're kind of a know-it-all. And people are like, shut up, why do I have to listen to you? What do you know about blockchain? And so I had to realize I had to bring in outsiders, a lot of spark, what I call sparks, the people who you bring in, that's why you have a business, right? To bring in outsiders, to spark perspective, to help you get outside yourself. Because people be like, what expertise do you have? None, right? I was kind of the golden retriever of the company. I had to go fetch and bring it back, and then I had to create the mechanisms. And then from there, it grew to kind of organize field trips where we do the discovery and serendipity together. It could be something as simple as a Friday field trip with a team where we go and look at a new retail concept like Story or something else, or it would be something more organized where I remember taking a group of top-tier executives to Israel and made them sleep for 2 weeks in military barracks in Israel to learn about non-hierarchical learning. Like, I could tell them, I could bring in an Israeli general, but until they saw it, they weren't going to change. So over time, I think that kind of discovery, translation, I realized my job was to maintain this balance of outside, inside, but to create a surround sound of change. Because everybody had to find their own way there. And I had to force them to discover because no one wants to do this. They're always like, that's frivolous, who has time for that? I got a quarter to make. This is all extraneous. And so in the end, for me, I kind of, this framework, I'd be like, okay, I guarantee you have 10% of your time that's wasted on stuff you already know the answer to. In meetings, you already know the outcome. Just checkers, checking, checkers. Can you take that 10% and turn it into discovery, into figuring out what's new and next? So that became a bit of a kind of counter argument I could leverage. I guarantee you got 10% of your time wasted. Let's take that and go discover. And so those were some of the tricks I tried to incorporate over time.
How were you able to then have conviction to say, hey, these are the areas we need to be playing in, and then drive it to action, with testing ideas or like taking it beyond just the field trip and driving it into action for the business?
Well, it was twofold. There's nothing like the power of, because the boss said so, and I would say I learned to use that sparingly as I got wiser and more mature in my innovation career. But key initiatives, and we're all going to do this, still work in big organizations. I remember one of my early learnings, and that was we created something called Imagination Breakthroughs, and it was just a protected class of ideas. These were market back. The journey I was on to fight for marketing being market development and market back in a company that was really good at technology development from the inside out, we had to create some tension. And we created these protected class of ideas, a bit of funding for them, but people had to self-fund and kind of made it mandatory. So you had to do some of those kind of tools to make it happen. And then you had to create the mechanisms and the tools that people could come in and say, yeah, but I know the aviation business better than you do. So I'm going to come in and pitch a, air taxi and see it through and we had to kind of fight for this. My job ultimately became fighting for the space, the resources, sparking the questions, but ultimately they had to own it at the business unit. They had to believe it was going to make their business better. I was just the catalyst. And so if it was about my idea or me giving them the idea, that wouldn't work. I could create the framework and say, you must protect some ideas. Hey, those aren't good enough. Hey, are you trying more? But ultimately, they had to be the ones saying, yeah, air taxis are our future. If I told them air taxi, they wouldn't have